Kai Yamato had never felt more alive than he did after the jam session at the community center. The chaotic blend of instruments, the way his drumbeats wove into the music, and the thrill of creating something on the spot had left him buzzing with excitement. For days afterward, he replayed the experience in his mind, tapping rhythms on his desk at school and replaying melodies in his head. But what stayed with him most was the connection he'd felt with the other musicians. For the first time, it wasn't just about playing alone, it was about being part of something bigger. It was a week later when Kai returned to the community center, his drumsticks tucked into his bag and nerves bubbling in his chest. Hiroshi, the guitarist who had introduced himself during the first session, greeted him with a wide grin. "Back for more?" Hiroshi said, slinging his guitar over his shoulder. Kai nodded. "Yeah. I've been practicing." "That's what I like to hear," Hiroshi said. "You know, we're looking for a drummer for a band I'm putting together. Nothing serious, just some guys who want to play and maybe do a gig or two. Interested?" Kai froze. A band? He had barely gotten comfortable playing with strangers, and now Hiroshi wanted him to join a group? "I don't know," Kai said, his voice hesitant. "I'm not that good yet." "Mate, no one's expecting perfection," Hiroshi said, clapping him on the shoulder. "You've got good timing, and you can keep a beat. That's all we need. Think about it." Kai spent the next few days agonizing over the offer. Part of him was thrilled by the idea of being in a band. It sounded like the kind of thing only cool, confident kids did. But another part of him was terrified. What if he wasn't good enough? What if he messed up and embarrassed himself? At home, he kept the idea to himself. His parents still didn't know about the drumming, and Kai wasn't ready to tell them. Instead, he spent every spare moment practicing in Mr. Tanaka's garage, running through rhythms and patterns until his hands ached. "You're pushing yourself pretty hard," Mr. Tanaka said one evening as Kai wiped sweat from his forehead. "I just want to be ready," Kai said, his voice determined. "For what?" Kai hesitated, then admitted, "Hiroshi asked me to join his band." Mr. Tanaka's face lit up with a smile. "That's fantastic. So why do you look like you're about to pass out? What if I'm not good enough?" Kai asked, voicing the fear that had been gnawing at him. Mr. Tanaka crossed his arms, leaning against the garage wall. "Let me tell you something," he said. "Every great musician I've ever met started out thinking they weren't good enough. You don't get better by hiding. You get better by putting yourself out there, making mistakes, and learning from them." Kai nodded slowly, letting the words sink in. The following Friday, Kai walked into the community center with his drumsticks in hand and a knot of nerves in his stomach. Hiroshi greeted him with his usual easygoing grin, and Kai noticed two other teens standing nearby, a bassist with shaggy hair and a quiet demeanor, and a keyboardist who radiated energy and confidence. "Kai, meet Takeshi and Jun," Hiroshi said, gesturing to the two boys. "Takeshi's on bass, Jun's on keys. We've been jamming for a bit, but we're missing something, or should I say someone?" Kai smiled nervously and gave a small wave. "Hi." Jun clapped his hands together. "Finally, a drummer. Let's see what you've got." The group spent the next hour trying out different songs. Hiroshi led the way, strumming out chords on his guitar, while Jun filled in with soaring keyboard melodies and Takeshi kept a steady groove on the bass. At first, Kai struggled to keep up, his nerves making his timing waver. But as the session went on, he started to relax. "Nice, Kai," Jun said after they finished their first full song. "You've got a good feel for this." "Yeah, solid work," Hiroshi added. "What do you think? Ready to make it official?" Kai hesitated, glancing around at the smiling faces of his new bandmates. Then he nodded. "Yeah. Let's do it." Over the next few weeks, the band came together piece by piece. They started calling themselves Breakpoint, a name Jun had suggested after a late-night brainstorming session. They met twice a week at the community center, running through covers of rock and pop songs and experimenting with original ideas. Kai quickly found his groove. Playing with the band was nothing like practicing alone, it was dynamic, unpredictable, and exhilarating. He learned to listen as much as he played, locking in with Takeshi's bass lines and following Hiroshi's cues. But it wasn't always smooth sailing. "Too fast, Kai," Hiroshi called out during one session, waving his hand to slow the tempo. "Sorry," Kai said, adjusting his pace. "And Jun, you're drowning out the vocals," Hiroshi added. Jun rolled his eyes but turned down his keyboard. Mr. Perfectionist strikes again. Despite the occasional tension, the group worked well together. They pushed each other to improve, celebrating small victories and laughing off mistakes. At home, Kai continued to keep the band a secret. He wasn't sure how his parents would react, especially Akio, who had always emphasized responsibility and discipline. But Marissa began to suspect something was going on. "You've been spending a lot of time out lately," she said one evening as they washed dishes together. "What are you up to?" "Just practicing," Kai said, avoiding her gaze. Marissa raised an eyebrow but didn't press further. The band's first real test came when Hiroshi announced they had booked their first gig, a small event at a local café that hosted live music nights. "This is our chance to show people what we've got," Hiroshi said during a practice session. "We'll keep it simple, 3 songs. Kai, you ready for this?" Kai's stomach flipped at the thought of performing in front of an audience. But he nodded. "Yeah. Let's do it." The night of the gig arrived, and Kai felt like his nerves were going to eat him alive. The cafe was small but packed with people, their chatter filling the air as the band set up on the tiny stage. "You'll be fine," Jun said, clapping Kai on the back. "Just play like we practiced." When the first song started, Kai's hands were shaking, but as the beat kicked in, he found his focus. The music flowed, and the crowd responded with cheers and applause. By the time they finished their set, Kai was grinning from ear to ear. "Not bad for our first gig," Hiroshi said, raising a hand for a high five. Kai slapped his hand with a laugh. "Not bad at all." Ending hook. With their first performance behind them, Breakpoint begins to dream bigger. But as the band's ambitions grow, so do the challenges that come with balancing music, school, and family.